We have shocking new video in the case of the 12-year-old girl found dead in her home. Her stepfather is now facing horrific allegations of assault in connection to what happened to 12-year-old Eve Rogers.
We just got a call for your daughter stealing at 100 Elm, the gas station. And then she's out running across the street.
What we know about the investigation into how this young girl died and who could be charged with her murder. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. No person, let alone a 12-year-old girl, should go through what police say young Eve Rogers allegedly endured inside her home. This is newly released body cam video of police in Enfield, Connecticut, approaching 12-year-old Eve on the street a week before her death on March 11th. The video was first obtained by WVIT television in Connecticut. The audio is redacted of what the officer says when he approaches Rogers, who is out on the street in the cold, and it's roughly 1:30 in the morning. Police say they got a call about an alleged larceny at a gas station on the same street where Eve lived. The clerk claimed a girl came in, took an energy drink, didn't pay, and ran off. This is surveillance video from that store per WTNH. Now, in the body cam video, you can see the girl, identified as Rogers, is holding what appears to be an energy drink in her hand. Now, before I show you the part of the body cam video where police go to Eve's home and they speak to her mom, I want to remind you of the difficult details of this story that are key in this investigation. Now, Eve lived with her mom, her stepdad, and at least one other sibling, a 17-year-old brother, in a home in Enfield, Connecticut, which is a small city. It's near the Massachusetts border. Eve's mom told police that Eve was on the autism spectrum and she was homeschooled. We'll have more on that in a moment. Now, this is what dispatchers said at 10:30 in the morning on March 18th.
Dispatch next medic Thompsonville, hot response to Elm Street nearest Crossville Spring Garden for a 12-year-old female, unresponsive, not breathing.
According to the arrest warrant that we have on this case, when police got to the family's home, they were met by Eve's mom. She allegedly said that Eve never sleeps past 10 o'clock in the morning. She's typically a light sleeper, but on the morning of the 18th, her daughter didn't get up and she became worried. She says she used a butter knife to open the door, and that's when she found Eve on the floor face down.
Be advised, the 12-year-old was found face down with some blood, believed coming out of the mouth, and she is autistic.
Police say next to Eve, they found two pills. One was red or pink, and the other was clear with the white powder inside. Then, on Eve's desk, they say they found a white pill, and that looked like aspirin. Now, I will warn you, the next part of this story, it is not easy to talk about. It is graphic. Police say as they investigated further, they noticed that Eve had a blanket around her waist, and when they removed the blanket, they said that she was naked. Police say they noticed what could be potential signs of sexual assault. Police then did a sexual assault kit on Eve's body, and that kit showed a, quote, mixture of 3 DNA contributors, with at least one of them being male. Police have not said whether more arrests are possible in this case, but this is the point of the story where we need to talk about Eve's stepfather, a man named Anthony Federline.
Hello, Grounded Fire, soul family, and friends. Welcome to another Grounded in Mercy Reiki healing session. For those that don't know, my name is Anthony.
We found what appears to be Federline's YouTube channel that he runs as someone who claims to be a spiritual healer. He also runs a website, and on that website, he sells memberships that go for as much as $33.33 a month, where he promises, quote, you'll soar on wings of transformation and divine connection. Federline also reportedly worked as a public school bus driver in Connecticut, specifically employed by a third-party company for the last 6 months, according to WVIT, and that company says that Federline was properly vetted for the job.
Late last night, members of this agency arrested Mr. Anthony Federline of 176 Elm Street here in Enfield under the authority of a state of Connecticut arrest warrant charging him with sexual assault in the first degree and risk of injury to a minor. Mr. Federline is being held on a $1 million court-set bond, and absent making that bond, will be presented in court in Hartford on Monday morning. The circumstances of the arrest and those charges do flow generally from this department's investigation, of the death of an individual that occurred a couple of weeks ago, back in March, at this same location.
Newly unsealed search warrants say that police are now investigating Federline for potential murder charges. But as of right now, he is not facing that charge. The search warrants that we have also show that police have taken electronics like tablets and cell phones out of the home, and they have also taken bedding, towels, sheets, clothing, pillows, and other items that will be processed at a crime lab.
It's going to be a 12-year-old, so I'm going to give her a courtesy ride back home and talk to mom and dad if you just want to go to Elm.
So let's get back to this body cam video. And again, this takes place a week before Eve Rogers was found dead. And in the video, the officer picks Eve up on the street. She's by herself in the middle of the night, and then he drives her home.
All right.
Mom?
Hello? Police department. Can you come back upstairs? Hello? Police department. All right.
Federline was reportedly home the night that police brought Eve back to her house in the middle of the night. And in this body cam video, the officer speaks mostly with Eve's mom. The video is heavily redacted, but you can hear the conversation that they have.
So it's gonna be a while. So I'm gonna give you guys a rundown really quick. We just got a call for your daughter stealing at 100 Elm, the gas station, and then she's out running across the street. No idea what she's doing.
Me neither. Why were you not even in the house?
Because bored.
What? Oh, you're right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go grab a couple photos and I'm gonna talk to her in front of you guys. If you guys give me consent to talk to her, she already admitted to stealing it. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be the biggest deal. I just have to figure out what that gas station wants to do. There's an officer out there speaking to them, but more so trying to just understand the situation from the parental point of view of things.
I don't know. She's never done anything like this before.
Okay.
And she's not allowed out in the middle of the night. She's never left the house in the middle of the night or during the day without anybody knowing.
Okay. Do you have a license on you, man, by any chance? Is it downstairs or? Sorry to wake you up, but.
No, it's fine.
What school do you go to?
She's homeschooled.
Roger's mom says that her daughter has never done this before and also says that her daughter is on the autism spectrum. The next part of the conversation, though, is interesting. The officer is just trying to get information, it seems, on Eve's mom and ask what she does for work, but it doesn't seem like Eve's mom wants to answer that question.
And what do you do for work?
I work from home.
You work from home? These are all the questions I have to fill out a form for if it comes to it. What kind of company do you like? What do you do?
I run my own website.
Okay.
It's like life coaching kind of stuff.
Now, we did find that she is associated with the website that Federline allegedly runs, this self-help website that promises tarot card readings and stuff like that. So maybe just in that situation, she's awoken in the middle of the night and she just doesn't want to say the name of the company. I just thought it was an interesting moment of that conversation.
Does she have any cognitive impairment?
She's autistic.
She is?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else? No. All right. I still have to read her the juvenile rights and things because I just need to hear from her.
Sorry.
But the couple things, clean cut. The other officer just paid for the drink, and the store is like understanding for once. So they're just gonna. So this still has to be documented on a case and everything.
Okay.
But he paid for the drink.
Oh, thank
They're not gonna trespass her. They're not gonna press charges against her or anything.
Now, it is important to remember, as you're watching this, all of this is taking place a week before Eve Rogers was found dead.
This is the most unexpected thing ever for her because she's usually like a strict rule follower kind of autistic. So like ever.
She's very sweet. Like when I saw her, she came running up to me and said, "You're talking to me because I took this, right?" I'm like, "Kinda."
So this is the most like unexpected for her.
Okay.
So no, this is not a normal thing. I don't even know what to think with that right now.
Okay. All right.
On the day that police responded to Eve's home when she was found dead, before Federline was arrested, it's also important to talk about how police say Federline was allegedly acting. There's an arrest warrant that we have that says when police got on scene, Federline was allegedly overcome with emotions and he appeared angry. He would allegedly not speak with police because he, quote, asked for space because he wanted to break things. Then when it came time to give a DNA sample, he did consent. But police say he was upset about having to do it because, quote, it felt like it was putting salt in the wound, he allegedly said. Then, on April 2nd, the results of the kits returned. This is a couple weeks after Eve Rogers' death, and police say those kits allegedly showed Federline was a match to one of the DNA samples that they collected on the day that Eve was found dead. Now, right now, Federline is charged with first-degree sexual assault and risk of injury to a minor. Eve Rogers' mom, she told CT Insider that she was not aware of what her husband is now accused of doing to her daughter. She is not facing charges in connection to her daughter's death. Join us now to talk about the latest in the case involving Eve Rogers is Lindsay McCall-Long, retired police officer. Always great to have you here on Law and Crime. You watch this body cam video and it seems very routine, seems like just the type of situation as an officer you may come upon. And there's no way, at least to our understanding at this point, that this officer would have known what was going to happen a week later in this case. So it's important to watch it knowing that. But what stood out to you when you just watched this interaction? I know a lot was redacted, especially involving Eve, but especially with the mom. What did you see?
Just kind of listening to her. She sounded surprised for the most part that her daughter had left the house. But I think I would be a little bit more upset just because it was 2 a.m. And considering that, I know later with the officer speaking to the mom, he did ask if she had any mental impairment, and we do find out that she's autistic. So I think for me, just as a parent, I think I just would have been a little bit more excited or like upset about her being out at 2 a.m. But the mom seemed to be concerned, but I don't know. For me, I just would have wanted a little bit more emotion and just from the mom.
And you look at this and there's no way we could have known what was going to happen a week later. So it is like, looking at it through this lens, and a lot of it is redacted. But in these situations where it does seem like a pretty typical call that you might deal with, what are you looking for when you go into a house and you're kind of not only just having that interaction with her, but you're kind of looking around, because it is like, even if she just snuck out and everybody was sleeping, and she's 12 years old and is able to make it to this gas station down the street, like it is pretty uncommon for a 12-year-old to be out at that time of night.
Yeah, I mean, when you see something like that, that does stand out. Is this a child that has behavioral problems? Has like he asked, has this happened before? Has she run away? Does she sneak out? Is there anybody in the neighborhood that she hangs out with or anything like that? So those are kind of the things that you're asking. And then you want to know about the family dynamic. What's going on at home? Does she have a good relationship with her parents? And also what's going on at school? If whatever information the officer can get from the parents regarding, is she getting suspended? Is she getting detentions? What kind of behavioral issues are we having at home? Because this seemed unusual, like the mom said, for her to be out at 2 a.m. because she's 12 years old and nobody knew she had left the house. So it sounds like maybe there was no alarm or anything like that. But she just popped out of the house and went on to the store. She knew where she was going. She didn't seem like she was scared on the video. She seemed like she was just kind of shopping, just kind of hanging out in the store until obviously she took the drink. But yeah, I mean, the officer is looking at the condition of the home also. How are the parents acting while interacting with the officer, and who else lives in the home as well? Are there any other adults in the home? Are there any other children in the home? And all of that can kind of point you in a specific direction. Is the house a mess? Does the child seem to be a little afraid of one or more of the adults in the house as they're coming around? So even looking at body language, the officer can note all of that in their interaction.
At the time we're recording this, we don't know the cause of death as of yet for Eve Rogers. Her stepfather, Anthony Federline, is just facing some terrible, terrible allegations of sexual abuse. And when you look at where we are in this investigation, we don't know Eve's cause of death, but there is a search warrant that's out there. And he has not been charged with murder, but the search warrant says murder.
Correct.
How do you get to the point where you could charge someone with that? I know cause of death is going to be huge, but the process of actually putting that down on a search warrant and what that means about where we are in the investigation.
Well, I'm not a part of this investigation, but what I would assume is when you try to get to that point, investigators, they suspect some sort of foul play took place. Maybe they're not releasing everything that they have right now to the media. So something has gone on to, they have reason to believe that a murder may have occurred. So the search warrant is going to ask to look for things at the home that is connected to what happened to this young lady.
One part of the body cam video that just stood out to me, and I don't think we got a chance to talk about this beforehand, but I know that Anthony Federline ran some sort of self-help website, and I think she was part of it as well. It was just an interesting interaction where the police officer is just trying to get information. He's working the overnight shift. I'm sure it's just okay, let's button this up, and she wouldn't answer about what she did for work. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know what you thought about it.
Yeah, and I don't know if she's afraid of the husband as well.
Right.
There could be just a lot more that we didn't see, or the officer just didn't know to ask for during that time because he's investigating one thing. So considering that the stepfather was arrested 2 weeks later for sexual assault, and everything else that's coming out of this, it could be a very real possibility that the wife is afraid of the husband and she was just really nervous, and that was just her body's way of reacting, and she just couldn't get that answer out.
Well, and to give her also just a little bit of grace. She was woken up in the middle, the middle of the night. You have a police officer at your door, and you're
you're not sure.
Right. You're not sure. And, I go back to the day that Eve Rogers was found dead, and she's found dead in her bedroom. And the story goes that her mom, she says Eve typically doesn't sleep past 10, and it was 10:30, and she calls 911. And then, they end up finding, this young girl, dead, and the investigation's underway. But I just wonder, as a police officer, when you're called to a house like that and you recognize the scene that's playing out here, and you also have in that home the stepfather, Anthony Federline, you have his wife, Eve's mom, you had, I believe, a 17-year-old was also in the house. How do you control that scene, knowing the emotions of everything that's going around, knowing that you're going to need to gather evidence? And the truth is, you're also probably interacting with people, and in this case, allegedly Anthony Federline, that is going to be charged in connection to this case.
Well, like you said, that is very chaotic, and it's going to be very emotional as well, because as a parent, you're going to want to get to your child. But also you have to preserve evidence. And so you're going to want to clear the scene. Everybody's going to have to leave the home, and if possible, have an officer there to stand by with each person. Different agencies do it different ways. Some of them will have the patrol officer begin that investigation with the initial interview, and some of them will have you hold tight until a detective gets there to start that initial interview with anybody that was in the house. And the best thing you can do is, like you said, preserve evidence as best as possible, get everybody out of the house, make sure that you have a clear crime scene, get that crime scene tape up, make sure nobody enters it. And if anybody enters it, make sure you're keeping track of who's entering it and why, and only, for official reasons. You can't have just family and friends in and out of that area, because people are going to touch stuff. They're going to manipulate stuff. And even if they don't mean to, things like that can happen.
And DCF is investigating now in this case. It appears that they were called in connection to the incident where we're seeing the body cam video, but it's still not, and I say this is publicly, there's still not a lot of information as of yet, as far as the total history. We know there may have been some calls, this and that, but what is the communication like at this point between DCF, which we all know in a lot of states, and Connecticut's faced some criticism for some other cases recently, they're overwhelmed and there's a lot going on. What's that interaction like from the police side of it when you're trying to figure out the family history?
Well, they will have an investigator reach out to DCF and pull any time that the family has been in contact with DCF. You know, they're going to want all of that history. It doesn't matter how small the contact was, all the way back, all the way to most recent, and they're going to want to know why. They're going to want to look at how was that call cleared? Was anything founded? Was anything sustained? Or an unfounded. So they're going to want any and everything that they can find, because, you know, you always want to look at where could more have been done. And I understand that a lot of these agencies are overwhelmed, and, you know, some of them do the best that they can, and some of them cases get lost in the shuffle of things. So they're definitely going to have somebody assigned to that, pulling as much information as they can. And hopefully DCF will be very forthcoming and give them any and all information that they have as well.
Yeah, and it's just it's hard to find words for this story, you know, and it just seems like every new update that comes in, it's just so difficult to hear. Again, Eve Rogers' cause of death, we still don't know at this point, but Anthony Federline, her stepdad, facing some very serious charges, and we'll see if more charges are added to that. Lindsay McCall-Long, retired police officer, it's always great to have you here on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.